Before you die, yo, reach for his gun, quick as a twitch. Said, fill your claw, you son of a bitch. Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six-Gun Joe.
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe-Montaldo.
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are on our beautiful blue planet. Sorry, that was hard to get that out. Maybe it should have been more like, man, like half of y'all some bitches need to blow your asses up. Look, I don't have to be all politically correct. It's one of them things. Somebody told me one day, listening to this show, actually the title that was before this show, UFO Undercover, and somebody was telling me one day, and they said, well, you can't say that on that show. I'm like, really? And he's like, well, you really can't say that on that show. I'm like, really? It's my blanket show, man. What do you mean I can't say it? You know, last I checked, I paid the bills. I was the host. I mean, you know, it's my show. If I want to say it, I will. Well, here's one for you. You know, Stephanie and I were doing, we've been adding clips to the segments to different things on News and the Flip Side. And I had a lady write to me the other day. She's a very liberal lady, very nice lady. I don't want to talk bad about her. And basically says to the extent of, you can't say those things about Mr. Obama and that on the air like that. I'm like, so I wrote back real sweet, why not? And she, because it's unpatriotic. And then I just wrote back, laughs out loud. She sent me like 5 pages of why I shouldn't be talking about the emperor. Really, I was just like, really? And then I just sent it back to her. I'm like, come on, sweetie. You don't want to be talked about, don't be president. It's that simple. I've never seen a president not get talked about. It's part of the job. If you're that thin-skinned, you shouldn't be president. And that's all I'm saying about that. I just thought it was funny because I get a lot of stupid letters. I get a lot of good letters. I really do get a lot of, thank you. Especially doing with iCar. I get some of the nicest, sweetest letters from iCar members and people I've worked with. And Jeremy, I know I promise, and I will. The schedule is sitting on my desk in Mississippi. I will try to post it to my Facebook page this weekend. We're opening up the house in Mississippi for hypnosis, and I know there's a couple of people interested, and I've been promising them, Barry, you too. I've been promising to post the thing, and I just haven't. It's just been such a chaotic thing, and I have to go back. I've been backtracking because I forgot I got a couple of speaking engagements coming up, so I had to make sure I wasn't, promising time that way I was going to be somewhere else. And somebody had asked me a couple of weeks back about on a couple of places I'm giving lectures this year, will I be doing hypnosis? That's a tough one. It depends. It depends. Really, just depends. Depends on a lot of things. How tired I am, if I drove, if I flew, who's with me, who's not with me, how much it is I'm doing by myself, things like that. Usually I travel with an entourage. I usually have a bunch of people meeting me there, and I usually bring a couple people up with me. But every once in a blue moon, I just fly up to a conference by myself. Like for New York this year, when I go up in October, I'll be flying up by myself probably. So maybe even in LA when I'll probably be out by myself. But the rest of them, I usually have people with me. Because, I want to go see the family, and then Linda likes to travel sometimes and see different things. Now that she got to camp, I don't know if I ever get out to damn camp. I have to pry it out of cold, dead-ass hands, I guess. She ain't leaving the place. Have y'all? I don't know how many of y'all have seen it. There's a couple of pictures on my Facebook page, and I'll post some more. I had posted the address up because you could find it. It's still listed with the realtor which is not who we bought it from. We bought it from somebody else, but we bought it from the owner directly. But it's a great place. It's a great place to do hypnosis. It's very laid back. It's very beautiful. And, you know, it's a camp. Somebody the other day said they had seen some pictures of it online. They said, Joe, that's not a camp. That's a house. No, it's a camp. It may be a pretty camp, but it's a camp. It's 16 feet off the ground. It has a porch out in the back. It has a boat launch underneath it. It has a dock. It's a camp. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It's a camp. It's on 2 acres of land. You know, it's up against the Gulf of Mexico on the bayou. It's a camp. There's wildlife running all over the place. You'll see raccoons and opossums and all kind of wonderful other stuff. Foxes. Haven't seen any deer, but I don't think there's any deer in that area. There's too many homes around there. But you've seen everything else but hawks. I love these hawks. They think my dogs are snacks. They don't come around so much now that I went outside with a shotgun, but for a while they thought my little puppy, my little black Maxie, was a snack. I'm like, no, buds, I will shoot your ass out of the air. They don't call me Six Gun Joe for nothing. You will be hawk on a shish kebab. Because my grandpa told me never waste a good bird when you can just shish kebab him up. They used to have me go shoot crows for them. I know. The damnedest things you do when you're a kid. Well, it's a good town to visit. I mean, I got a story for Saturday. They had the 10 worst cities to live in, or 10 worst states to live in, or whatever it was. But Louisiana made like 4th or 5th. Matter of fact, the top 5, I believe, was southern states. And I'm like, so I decided, which I shouldn't have done, but I decided to go check on some other states like New York and Chicago and Illinois and California and Michigan, just to see what the comparisons was, right? So I'm trying to figure it out because they based it on crime stats and healthy living. So I said, well, okay, I'll go check out these 4 or 5 other states. I found at least 5 other states that had way worse. I kind of was wondering what was the intention of this article. New Orleans does have a bad crime rate, and I'm honest about it. You don't ever want to come down here by yourself, and you don't want to not. And if you do come down here, there's certain neighborhoods you want to stay out of, and you never want to travel by yourself, ever. And if you can, avoid walking around in dark, unlit streets early in the morning, unless you know where the hell you are. Because, tourists are like candy to some of these people. The Quarter rarely ever had problems with crime, but lately even it's been having problems. So it's just be careful if you're down here. That's all I can tell you. It's a great place to come hang out. You'll have a blast. You have a lot of fun. I'm in the Quarter all the time. I don't have any problems down there, but I'm also a local. And I do know my way around. And I will walk down dark streets early in the morning. I'm doing all sorts of things, actually, which half of them I can't mention on this radio show. But I've done some ghost hunting, some UFO hunting early in the morning down there. I've done other things, too, but nothing I can talk about here. Maybe we'll do an R-rated show one night. But nothing I can talk about on this show. But the French Quarter is a great place, and you can have a lot of fun. And you can let all your inhibitions go because no one's going to ever say anything about it. It's kind of like Vegas. Everything happens on bourbon stays on bourbon, unless you happen to have friends that own a radio station. It might be a little bit different. Yeah, we'll go ghost hunt. I love to ghost hunt. I don't do it because I have iCar, but I do like it. Man, I'll take you to this old 400-year-old baby cemetery in the middle of a swamp, scared of a Jesus out of your ass. It was abandoned. Well, it's not actually abandoned. It was taken over. NASA's Stennis facility, when it incorporated the area at the Mississippi-Louisiana state line, it took over 4 towns. There were actually 4 principalities there. And the Stennis facility engulfed all of them, so their graveyards and water towers and all are still left behind. This great Jason's in the room. Jason's been there. I think Jason's been to the graveyard in the swamp in Honey Island. But there's 3 or 4 of them out there. And man, you got there like a full moon at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't give a shit who you are. You be Mr. Ghost Hunter with the balls the size of the house. It's still going to scare you, buddy. Because if nothing else, you're in the swamp. You're in a graveyard on a full moon in the middle of the swamp. And God knows what kind of voodoo's been going on back there for the last 400 or 500 years. I'm not even sure if I want to last 300 or 400 years. Sorry. I'm not even sure if I want to know. You find the damnedest things buried in the swamp. Rule to the wise. If you see like a rag with some stuff stuffed in it, don't dig it up. Leave it alone. Trust me on this. Just leave it alone. If you're not well protected, you don't understand this stuff, you can do harm to yourself without even realizing it. In so many ways that it's not even funny. And I'm not even talking about just the magical stuff where you might disturb someone's ceremony or someone's magic. Just some of the shit they put in there is dangerous. So just be careful. That's all I got to tell you. No, where we saw the black shadow things, which we'll probably talk about at the end of the show today. Where we showed, I think Erica's going to stop by to plug her new book, so maybe when she comes on, we'll talk about it a little bit. But where I saw that was in Honey Island Swamp. It's in the same swamp, by the way. This swamp, there's a lot of shit goes on in this swamp, not just for us. There's literally hundreds of people that have had problems up in there. And what's funny is no one ever said anything about the swamp, except it was scary until we started going public with stuff. Now that we've been on the air, and now these spots have gotten popular. People go visit them a lot more often. A couple of these places, they put up big lights. Yeah, one of the best UFO, well, not best UFOs, but one of the best TR3 Black Triangle watching areas in the whole Gulf Coast. They stuck a big white light up there so it blots out the sky so you can't see anything coming over now. I was like, that's so cheesy. I know people go shoot the light out all the time. But, if you get caught doing it, it's a $500 fine. As long as you use a BB gun. If you use anything bigger than that, it's probably quite a bit bigger fine. But it's a great place to go. But to break it down, if you leave New Orleans, New Orleans, everybody forgets, New Orleans is built in a swamp. Okay, it's the high ground in a swamp. That's what New Orleans itself is. Where I live is Metairie. It's just a swamp we filled in and built on top of. That's where I live, which is about 2.5 miles from downtown, about 3 miles from Bourbon Street, maybe 4. I live in a swamp. It feels like a swamp. It smells like a swamp. It looks like a swamp half the time when it's raining. New Orleans itself was built on high ground, but everything around New Orleans is where everybody used to go do this stuff. If it's within a 5-mile radius of downtown New Orleans, probably has all kind of murdered, dead people who have been, whatever. You've got pirates hiding loot, gamblers doing stuff, voodoo queens, just bad people in general. There's a lot of shit went on down here. New Orleans it still is, but it was, a very hub city. It was just a bad place to be back in the day. It's trying to get its reputation back, but it's just a bad place. Not too much in the way of rules and lots of debauchery, which is kind of what it's like right now. But there are rules now. There's still all the debauchery, by the way, but there are rules now. And they still find people floating dead in the swamp with weird stuff stuffed down their throats and wrapped around their heads. Voodoo is alive and well in New Orleans. Not just voodoo, there's several kind of magics alive and well in New Orleans. I know I'm friends with 2 covens, 2 different coven houses, two groups of witches. I grew up with a couple of them. And then there's another coven, which I don't think I've ever got a chance to meet them, which has a witch store down in the French Quarter. Don't ever be the 13th in a coven, guys, okay? Just penny wise. Just be a little smart. Covens are generally 12. They may have underlings and stuff like that, but there's usually just 12 in the coven. I know a lot about magic. It's not something we readily talk about on this show. Now, on this show we can, on the other show we couldn't. But anyway, we're not going to get into that tonight. Y'all keep distracting. We're talking about ancient aliens tonight. We just got on a Honey Island Swamp, which is a great place. It's if you go there just for the beauty, it's fabulous. I've been out there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've seen does dropping fawns right there in front of me on the side of in the field next to us. I've seen just tons of wild hogs, 40, 50 at a time, going back and forth. Herds of deer running around. There's bear back there. There's panthers back there. There's bobcats back there. There's big old whopping-ass alligators back there. We were out there one night about 5 o'clock in the morning. It had flooded a little bit. I'm like, damn, there's a log in the middle of the road. Big old-ass log, too. I'm like, man, I have to get out the car and drag this log so I can get around it because of the way I wanted to go. Yes, I got up there, and I'm looking with my headlights. I'm like, man, that's an odd-shaped log. I got about 15 feet from it. Snapped its head around, snapped at my headlight. I'm like, you stupid-ass gator. He's probably about 12 feet, 13 feet, laying, just sitting in the middle of the road. I just kept blowing a horn at him until finally he got out the way. I rolled the car and stomp it and roll it back. He finally said, all right, this guy's crazy. Let's get out of here. I thought about just shooting his ass, and if I'd have been in my pickup truck, he'd have been lunch. Oh, yeah, he'd have been a new pair of boots at the very least, man. A gator that size for meat and hide worth $6,000-7,000. Easy. I'd have been like, ooh, thank you. Thank you, Glutton, for delivering this alligator to my family. No, I'm just kidding. What is that? Oh, no, anyway, let's get on topic now. We've goofed around enough here. You know, ancient aliens has always been one of my favorite topics. And when we say ancient aliens, of course, we're referring aliens back in the ancient cultures, the ancient worlds, and places like that. Now, it depends where we're going to start. Now, we're going to actually start a little further back than most people would like. We're going to go about 55,000 years. We're going to travel backwards in time about 55,000 years to Europe. Now, of course, this is Stone Age Europe. I mean, what's going on here? You know, some guys running around with some rocks and some spears with some rocks tied on in them. Probably don't even have really sharpened or anything. Not much going on. You know, just procreation and killing each other. Pretty much it, and killing other things. Just typical human crap. So, hence they have, you know, they lived in caves and places like that. Cave art. Found it, I think it was in, I believe it was in Germany. It was right around there. I think it was Germany, though, but if not, it's right around there. There's a cave there, and then there's another cave. I think it's in Ireland or Scotland. I always get the two confused. Both of them depict what appears to be 3 discs. They're painted as discs. They're definitely in the sky because you can see the deer underneath the disc. Okay, so what it looks like, one disc has like a beam of light coming down from it, like pushing. It's almost like it's herding the deer to the hunters. It shows a hunter standing over here waiting, and so it's really, that's what it looks like. Nobody to this day knows what it means. You know, I've heard all kinds of speculations. It does look like 3 discs herding. Not a big deal when you see it the first time. You're like, ah. But then you hear about the one in Ireland, Scotland, and you're like, well, that's kind of interesting. Now, and that one's about, I think, 10,000 years or 8,000 years newer than the first one we talked about. Now, let's skip over to America, to about 6,500 years ago. There's a cave found out in, I believe it's New Mexico. No, it's Arizona, I'm sorry. And there's 3 discs with some Indians with spears, and it looks like with one that looks like a beam of light coming down, but there's buffalo running in front of them instead of deer. Now, if I wouldn't have seen this, I had seen the other ones, and I was just kind of like, yeah, it really doesn't mean anything, does it? But when I seen this, it almost shows me that at least in some occasions, it seemed like these aliens were directing food towards our ancestors. Now, I can't say that 100%, and I can't say it beyond reasonable doubt. But it's a damn good theory based on the evidence. Interesting. Okay, so we're going to go backwards back in time about 5,000 more years. So now we're back about 11,000 BC. Well, we're back, about 9,000 BC, about 11,000 years ago. So we're back about 9,000 BC. So here we are. This is a city we just recently found off the coast of India thanks to a tsunami. Okay, I hate to think of tsunami for anything, but thanks to the tsunami, there was actually 2 cities found. They both date back about 10 or 12,000 years ago. Doesn't surprise me, mind you. So for some reason it surprised the archaeologists. It didn't really surprise me. It didn't surprise most of the people I knew either, because we've always thought that civilization was much older than it was given credit for. We even think it's older than the 10 or 12,000 year mark, but still. It's just a good place to start. That may have been the rebirth of civilization, the 12,000 year mark, because that's probably around the end of the last ice age. So that was probably the reignition of the civilizations that are here today. What was here before, we'll probably never know. Between the destructions, the ice and the volcanoes, probably most of that's been completely wiped away. But regardless, there does seem to be something, for the simple fact that these were big cities in India. 250,000, 350,000 people living there. These aren't some little shithole town. These are big urban cities with modern plumbing in it and what looks to be concrete. I mean, a lot of it's carved stone, but a lot of it's mixed. The thing about this is, this isn't even supposed to exist. Remember this. The Sumerians were supposed to be the start of civilization 6,000 years ago. That's the Sumerians, and we're going to get to them, because there's a lot of stuff in the Middle East we're going to talk about, but we're going to stay where we are for a minute. So we're in India, we're in Asia, and obviously we find this city. Well, there's in the middle of the city, there's an altar that's well, I don't want to say an altar. It's a big square block. And on the floor is a big circle, and it's obviously the floor, okay? And it could be any tile circle like anything else. But what's so funny about the circle is it has a circle in the center of the circle that looks like a dome. Could mean anything. Okay, so we're going to go there. We're going to go walk around the ruins. On the earth side of the ruins, what I mean by that is the side closest to the land side, is a wall where they found a group of these things. And what it looks like they're intermingling with the people, like the fishermen were right there. It's almost like the disc things were pushing fish up on the beach. Hey guys, can you hear me? Testing. Okay, that was weird. Now the internet went down. I don't know what the hell happened. Yeah, that was just a tad bit freakity weird there. Not sure what the hell happened there. But okay, let's get back to what we were talking about. Let's make sure everything's plugged in real good before we get back to what we were talking about, because that was weird. And we don't want no more weird crap going on. It just did. It was like the whole internet went down. Either that or something hacked the Paltalk account. I'm not sure. But anyway, so here we are, we're finding this what appears to be something, feeding the multitudes at some types of discs. So on at least 4 occasions now, we've got these discs associated. I think there's more than that, actually, but we're just going to stick with the 4. That looks like in some way or another they're driving food or something towards humans. Now, what the discs are, we're going to talk about later, but still, they're there. We have the pictures of that. That seems to be what's going on. Now, we're at, around 11,000 years ago, which is, like I said, 6,000 years before the earliest known civilization. Now, from what I've heard about this Indian city, this is a very advanced city. Now, and recently, now it's not even considered the oldest city anymore either. From what I understand, there's at least 4 more cities been found around the world that actually predate these by 2,000 to 3,000 years. This all seems to have popped up right at the end of the last ice age, or right as it was waning out, as it was becoming temperate climate again. It seems to be when all this was popping up. Why there was such a big setback is anybody's guess. Could have been Levette's cosmic pulse, as far as we know. But something happened. And the reason I say this is, before we go on any further, when you think about this date, 12,500 BC, okay, which is 10,000 years ago, when you think about this date, you're like, oh, no big deal, the end of the ice age, 10,000 years ago, no big deal. Yeah, but it is a big deal. Because the only time that Leo lines up with the Sphinx is at 12,500 years ago. The only time the Great Pyramids on Giza line up with Orion are 12,500 years ago. It's a significant damn number. The only time the statues at Easter Island line up with the Seven Sisters, 12,500 years ago. The only time Angkor Wat lines up with Draco, 12,500 years ago. There's at least 4 other examples of this. Now, all of this stuff was built after the fact. So every society we're talking about here had to understand precession and quite a few other things about space science, actually, to build monuments to something that happened 6 to 8 or 10,000 years before they even existed. So my thing is where did the memory come from? What drove them to do this? What drove the Egyptians to build monuments to something that happened 6,000 years earlier, but leave no notations about why? Angkor Wat. There's no reason why the city was designed to line up with Draco. We know they all had fascination with stars, but for them all line up with their prospective constellations in the same year is just weird. Okay, anyway, look at that. That's just beyond a coincidence. I do not believe in those kind of coincidences. There was some kind of driving factor to this. Maybe it's genetic memory, maybe it's something inbred, maybe they come around so often and say, hey, look, build this monument so you don't forget, so you don't forget, so you don't forget. Apparently we want to forget. Whatever the hell it is we want to forget. Must not be anything fun because humans seem to want to forget this. And we have all these monuments. You would think, and I've heard modern-day scientists talk about this and modern-day archaeologists, they can't argue with the fact that these line up with their constellations. This is a fact. This isn't speculation. This isn't some whack job saying, oh, these constellations. Oh, no. This is heavy-duty astronomy, and it's a fact. They line up with their constellations at 12,500 years ago. So when you ask archaeologists about it, why is it such a significant date for all these different societies? And remember, some of these societies we're talking about didn't know each other. They had never met each other. So there's not even any real way for this information to be assimilated by any of the other cultures. Unless we were a much faster seafaring and better seafaring race than we ever realized 15, 20,000 years ago. Ooh, but I find that kind of hard to believe because it was an ice age. How much water was there actually on the planet? Well, I imagine in the middle it was a lot, but still. I don't know, guys. It just doesn't seem to. Science's answer for a lot of this stuff just doesn't seem to add up. It's 2 and 2 is not making 4. It's making like 14. And when you question them on it, all they do is get mad. It's always a bad sign when you ask a person a question and they get mad because it means they don't know the answer or they're lying about the answer. But either way, it's just not a good sign. Unless it's a question that's been asked that person 100 times. It might be different. So anyway, we've got all these ancient cultures, much before the Sumerians and the Egyptians, out there. There are 4 or 5 of them, it looks like, prior to us. And then, of course, there's Bimini Road. If you want to talk about it, I can go back and forth on Bimini. I can go back and forth on a Japanese city. I'm still not 100% either one of those or what they say. But the sunken city off the coast of Cuba is a fact. It's never talked about. It's officially been recognized by the American, Canadian, and Cuban archaeological societies. There's been formal digs. There's been formal divers. There was 2 of the divers we even knew personally used to come in our old chat room on UFO alien phenomena and talk about what they were doing. And then all of a sudden they shut up. You couldn't get them to say anything. Nobody would say anything. Then all you could find was one lousy satellite image of the area. Everything was pulled off the internet. And still to this day, they don't talk about these cities. But you can go find the image. It's still there. The city's there. There are pyramids there. They went on record as saying that they just, for some reason, nobody wants to talk about it. Just like nobody wants to talk about the cities in India. Anything that upsets the current status, people don't like to talk about it. You know, they just don't want to talk about it. It's, oh, well, yeah, that's really interesting, but let's not talk about that because that blows our theories and makes us look dumb. Well, you are dumb. The fact that you won't address this makes you look dumb. Address it. Something obviously was going on, more was going on there than y'all want to talk about. Address the damn thing. So, here we are with Angkor Wat and Easter Island and the Draconians, I'm sorry, which was Angkor Wat's anyway, but I was talking about the Druids, Stonehenge. There's just so many of these monuments built to something in the sky. And then there's the Nazcan lines, or the different types of art all around Europe that only can be seen from the sky. Who the hell are they drawing pictures for? Obviously, in any of these cases, the only place you can really enjoy the actual art is from above. If you're not above it, you can't really see it. It's just not doing you any good. So you got to kind of wonder who the hell they were making art for in the skies. You know, you can say it was the gods, but you know what? 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, yeah. After a while, you'd be like, well, God ain't talking to me, screw it. But we're talking hundreds and over a long period of time. That suggests there was something else there. I don't know. And then there was the fact that they used to board their children's heads to look like their gods' heads. Not sure what that means. So now you've got a race that's building these great, huge monuments to the sky, setting up these observation points across the sky, tracking the movement of water underneath for the water supplies, which is probably a good thing to do for the ancient world. And then they're forming their children to look like the gods that they see. And the Nazcans talk about meeting the gods and talking to the gods and giving you great descriptions of the gods. So they're talking about meeting them on a first-hand basis. And if you go through all the ancient world, what I like to call pre-civilized world, you'll find that there seems to be a lot of this type of interaction, a much more basic, fundamental, hey, here's your food, here's your clothing, here's your housing kind of thing. It doesn't seem until we ring up until a more modern era, which is the Sumerians or the Egyptians, that seems to change. It doesn't so much seem then that they're bringing food or clothing or stuff like that. It seems more along the lines that they're imparting knowledge, and not always good knowledge, by the way. Sometimes it seems to be self-serving or not serving to us anyway. It may not be self-serving to them, but it doesn't seem to do us any good. And, of course, there's always a thing that sometimes the information is good. We just don't know how to use it, or we abuse it. Either way. But now we're in Egypt. We're going to go to Egypt first, because technically, I know there's a big argument about Sumerians with the first culture. Egypt was first culture. Well, they have the Zero dynasty in Egypt. Now, there was the first dynasty, which was about 500 years younger than the Sumerians. The Zero dynasty is about 2,000 or 1,000 years older than the Sumerians. The thing about it is when you read some of the stuff they're talking about visitation from the skies. Not just that. It's not just the interaction. It's not just the visitation from skies, but there does seem to be interaction, at least with the hierarchies of these societies. These aliens seem to interact, interbreed, whatever you want to call it, with these different societies around the world. And it seemed to go on for a couple of thousand years. It wasn't just like in a flash in a pan. It was, and the best I can say this is it all seemed to change around the time of Christ. Oh, people don't start just saying it was God, because I don't think anything to do with God. But it coincidentally, that's when it changed about 2,000 years ago, 2,500. Might have actually been before him, but still, it was in that general vicinity. They seem to stop walking open amongst us. They seem to take on a different role, a little darker role, a little off the wall role. Just seem to be a different type of role. I mean, when you read...
Let me just get this part done. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, thank you for joining us. And Solar Warden, good.
Her on next week.
You know, why don't you just get it and hold it and make it a one world government? I guess evil begets evil, huh? I guess in the end they get their own. We'll just leave that alone. Anyway, so at about 2,200 years, somewhere up in there, that's basically when we said screw it and everything changed. And it seemed to even take on even a more aggressive tone than even the generations before it. Even, I'm not saying that there wasn't some bad ones. There was the hordes, the Mongols. There was all kind of nastiness. But maybe I should say we just became more efficient at killing. Maybe that's the best. We became more efficient at growing. We became more efficient at everything around 2,000 years ago. So there seems to be another influx of technology around there. So we have the Sumerians talking about these aliens that used to come visit the planet and take their women and children. I mean, the Sumerians, not just the Sumerians, I mean, the Dogons, even the Egyptians, they give great detail. What's funny to me is the Egyptians describe, the Egyptians and the Sumerians describe what I would like to call the human-type aliens with the elongated heads, long heads in the back. And what's funny about it, the Egyptians actually paint pictures of them. I've only heard them in stories in Sumeria. Also, both the Sumerians and the Egyptians talk about reptilians. The Sumerians say the reptilians used to come in and rape and steal their women and rape their women and then bring them back. And then the women would have children and the children were different. Well, the children weren't different in the way they looked, but the children were different in the way they act. They had suddenly became self-aware. And they were all like, what the bleep bleep, what the bleep bleep, what the bleep bleep. And it's not just that. I mean, you can see it because at that time period where they're saying that the reptilians came back, because remember, that the Egyptians talk about reptilians interfering in their society. At these same times, there was massive revolutions going on in all these countries. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe the people became self-aware and said, screw it. We always just thought they were overthrowing their gods. I mean, not their gods, but their rulers and their masters. But maybe they were evicting the aliens finally, saying enough is enough. The only thing I've always wondered is why the aliens didn't fight back, or why they just didn't sterilize the whole bunch of them and start from scratch. I guess two opposing sides. You got to kind of wonder about that. Apparently somebody wasn't agreeing, because either the reptilians saved us or the humans saved us, but somebody saved us, because I'm sure the other side wanted to wipe us out. It just seems to be the way it was. I mean, because the Sumerians give great detail about the reptilians and the human aliens. They talk about the human aliens like gods. They said they came here. That's what they said, the words they used. They came here from distant worlds and settled on our earth and created two great white dome cities. That's a quote from the text, or from not the hieroglyphs, whatever they call it. Two great dome white cities. They said the people who lived there could not leave the cities because the air around the cities was toxic to them. So the story goes that these people created a race just like themselves that could live here and breathe the atmosphere and do what they want. That's not us, by the way. That's a much more advanced race than the one that's here today. That race, after some time, I don't know how they judged times back then, but after some time, that race decided, well, wait a minute. You know what? We're omnipotent too. We can do what we want. We can create and move and do whatever we want. So they created what the Sumerians call the 7 creations of man, with the last creation of man being us. Not exactly us, but a version of us. They looked like us, but they didn't really act like us. They were, according to the Sumerians, they could plow the fields, they could procreate, they could name the animals, they could make meat and stuff like that. What's so funny about that story is that's the same thing they say about Adam and Eve in the Bible. And they also talk about the serpent, giving Eve knowledge, which is also what the reptilians gave the Sumerian children that went back to Sumerian Egypt, knowledge. They gave them an understanding. They advanced their brains is what they did. They actually gave them intelligence at a much higher level. And it changed the world. Not necessarily for a good thing either, but it definitely changed the world. I don't think the human aliens were really anticipating what was going to happen when the reptilians introduced sentience to us. Because remember, all the stories say it. Like I said, the Sumerians say it, the Bible says it. There's a lot of other ancient stories out there that said that the human race that was here could do things like procreate, plow the fields, and name the animals. For some reason, the name the animal thing was stressed a lot. But that's about it. They didn't even talk about them having children, mind you. That's all they said they could do. And then all of a sudden, here comes a race that says, well, why do I have to plow the field? Why don't you go plow the damn field? Why do I have to work today? Why don't you work today? And then eventually they got fed up and there was a revolution, or whatever you want to call it. But that seemed to be what happened with Samaria. And if you follow the steps of Samaria fell. It just seems to had been weakened from the inside. And this was probably why. But we don't know by any means 100%, by any means. It's one of those things that we have to watch out and keep for clues and keep tabs on, because somebody might dig some up that may change things. There may be a new piece of the puzzle that comes in. It is ancient world, and you never know what's going to pop up in the ancient world. You just don't. But Samaria, the stories are good. There's lots of them. There's lots of walkthrough from beginning to end. They're pretty stable in what they believe and what they say. So the data is probably pretty good. But what helps their data is the Egyptians and the Dogon. The Dogon talk about the Nemos, what we like to call the reptilians. They call Nemos. They talk about this race that came here and landed in the water and then came walking out of the water. 2 upright walking reptilians. And they describe the reptilians that everyone sees today. They say they're a very benevolent and very kind race, that they're not a vicious, eating human kind of race. The Dogon think they're very benevolent, very kind. So do the Aborigines, by the way. Most Native Americans I talked to said the same thing. The lizard people are much nicer than the humans are. You hear the same story from contactees now. But by saying that, I don't want to give somebody a false sense of security, because reptilians can be mean and vicious when they want to be, and without any real cause either. So just keep that in mind when dealing with them. You know, it's funny you said that there, Dan. There was somebody had posted, actually Leela had posted a picture on the Facebook today that showed all kind of underground diggings with different levels and different things going. And I was telling her I must have lived in a past life because the one on the bottom right was mine. It was even air conditioned by the cool mud on the deep ground. You never know, man. You never know. You just never know. But with Samaria, you have a good fundamental basis of what seems to be some type of intervention. You go over to Egypt, you find basically the same story. I mean, it's basically the same damn story. The only difference in Egypt is now we seem to be having even bigger and broader miracles. Parting of seas, moving of mountains. It just, things seem to be changing. I mean, of course, this is later on now. You know, this is 2,000 years or 3,000 years later. But there does seem to be a progression there. Dogon, like I said, get into great detail about Nemos. And the Dogon knew a lot of stuff. For a little tribe on the outskirts of Egypt in Africa, yes, I know it's the Middle East, but the Middle East is in Africa. Who sent me that? Come on, you don't know where the Middle East is? It's in Africa. Sorry. It was just dumb the way you wrote that. I apologize. Oh, man, you threw my whole train of thought off there. But the Dogon live in a mountainous region. It's pretty cut off from everything. They have an advanced knowledge of circulation. They have an advanced knowledge. They've even known to have performed all kind of surgeries. But more importantly, they knew about Sirius A and B, but they also knew about Sirius C, which is really important. So is B. But even more importantly than that, they knew the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A, 55.5 light years. 55.5 years. How in the hell does a tribe in Africa figure out the orbit of a star they can't see? Remember, we can only see the star with a radio telescope. We can't see it with a normal telescope. It can't be seen with the naked eye, and it can't be seen without a radio telescope. So you tell me how the Dogon knew about in 1890 about a star. And somebody said, well, it's got to be a fake, and some archaeologists went there and said, oh, no, they knew we had this, and they knew. Really, if you look at their culture, their calendar has always been based on a 50.5-year calendar, which is the orbit of B around A. So I don't know how any archaeologists can even debunk that. That's just trying to say stuff just to be an ass, because really there's no way to debunk that. Their calendar is based on the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. They tell you that, and it's the same orbit, and no one knew that, 500 years ago or 300 years ago or 1,000 years ago. There was just no way to know. We've only known it for the last, 100 years. And the story was much, much earlier than that. So you just gotta kind of wonder, why the hardcore fight against this? Why? So anyway, let's pop forward to the Christian era. Okay, we're still in the Middle East. We've been in the Middle East for a while now. We're starting to feel sandy and dirty. I'm gonna need a shower after this show. It's dirty out here in the Middle East, but we're still here in the Middle East, kicking through the sand, sifting for clues, digging in the dirt, basically, watching the crazies run around, dodging bullets right now. It's a little dangerous over in the Middle East right now, but we're still there. In comes, 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ appears on the scene. Okay, well, at least we were told that was what would happen. 2,000 years ago, he appears on the scene. What's funny about it, though, there seems to be a lot of rigmarole and a lot of UFO sightings around the same time. There seem to be a lot of weird stuff now, signs and pretenses in the sky. Okay, the Son of Christ is born. Of course there's going to be things in the sky floating around. Well, there were things in the sky floating around before he came and long before that. But regardless, in this time area, there seemed to be some changing of the guard, something different. Something was going on, because remember, we had the Egyptians before this, Moses driving the slaves from Egypt and so on and so forth. Hell, as far as we know, Moses was an alien. Hell, as far as we know, he was taking them for himself. We just don't really know for sure. But anyway, we know all of this was going on around the same time. While all of this stuff seemed to be going on, we're talking like across about a 1,500-year range. I don't want anybody to get confused, but while all of this was going on, every culture in the Middle East talks about UFOs, seeing things in the sky. They've talked about UFOs intervening on other armies' behalves. I've heard about a dozen stories in the Middle East that says silver. Actually, the two that stand out the most in my head or both. There was a silver-like shield that came over and blasted a beam of light down and blew the gates of the city open so the invading army could come in. Now, both these stories are, of course, written by the army that invaded. But what's funny about it, and one of them for sure, the conquered army actually wrote about it. I don't know. Does it mean anything? It means something. There was nothing flying in the sky 2,000 years ago. There was nothing flying in the sky 3,000 years ago. There was nothing flying in the sky 250 years ago. So anything pre-200 years ago, you got to be interested in. You got to go, what the hell? Especially when you hear stuff about, oh, this thing appeared, disappeared, or zipped across the sky. I mean, these are common UFO sightings in today's society, so they were happening 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. It's not like ET just popped up on the scene. ET's been here for a very, very, very long time. And in different times, he, she, or it seems to be very involved in our cultures and our society. You know, when we first started doing research, we thought this was just pure research for them. Meaning like, probe this, probe that, push this, pin that, try this psychological test, try that stress test, try this test, see if they like this, give them chocolate, see what happens. You know, just basic test. But this goes far beyond that. They definitely, from the beginning of the stories we were talking about, where it seemed they were driving food, to where they even seemed to be getting involved in politics in the Middle East. And then remember this, in both Samaria and Egypt, some of the leaders had those elongated heads, whatever the disease is called. Just happened to be, you know, it looked like, to me, matter of fact, the first time I ever seen one of them, it looked, that's what I would picture, a hybrid of a human like us and a human alien interbred, because the head wasn't quite as big as a regular human. Maybe it was a youth, because they do get bigger than us. So at 6 foot, you know, I would think it was a human. It might have actually been one of their youth, because they get in the 7.5, 8 foot range. So that might exactly have been what it was. It's a strange thing. And yes, whoever sent that question yesterday about if there was a world out there. Oh, you're talking about that world they found that's 5 times the gravity of Earth? Well, yeah, if someone evolved there, they would be Superman here. Yeah, they would be 5 times stronger than us. They'd be able to lift your car with one hand, do jumps up halfway up a building and stuff, you know, stuff like that. They'd be like Superman, just not quite. But our little wimpy asses wouldn't be nothing. I imagine their bodies would be built different than ours, too, from all that gravity. 5Gs would be tough to live in all the time. I mean, come on. 5Gs would be tough to live in all the time. But getting back to where we were, when we talk about these different parts of history and the aliens being scattered around different places, it's important to remember that not everything is true. A lot of this is just BS written for whatever and stories taken out of context. But there are some fundamental truths, and there are definitely signs that they definitely intervened on our behalf. Not against us, but on our behalf. But by saying that, there also seems to be times where they stuck their nose into our politics and caused problems. And then remember, it's a good possibility both in Egypt and Samaria, they were actually ruling. They were actually playing God. That's always something that's bothered me about some of the ancient world gods, because especially when it came to like the Romans and the Greeks, there might have been some carryover into the other gods, because these seem to be gods. These seem to be more like omnipotent beings with an enormous amount of power, but not much more evolved than we are as far as their moral outlines and their thoughts and designs on the universe. I mean, think about humans. If we could do like what Zeus could do, we'd probably be the same. Can't half the guys I know it, I'll be catting around. It's just one of those things. So it does sound more like aliens than gods. And in most of the cultures, it sounds more like aliens than gods. And I know a friend of mine had put out, him and I had gotten a big argument, I don't know, about 12 years ago. And I told him that most of the miracles performed in a day could be performed today. And I said the ones that couldn't be would be soon. He says, well, we can't walk on water. No, but we can hover over water. And you give us another 100 years, we'll be able to design something that just sits right on top of the water and moves right over the top of the water, so it'll look like you're walking on water. Curing leprosy, yeah, we'll do that. And eventually we'll have a little device that fits in your palm. You just wave it over, it tells you what's wrong. You wave it again, it cures them. That is stuff. What are you talking about? And But anyway, I know we're getting ready to go to break here in a minute, so I want a couple of things right quick on the. Oh wait, hold on. We'll let Jason in before we go to break. If I can find him here. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Drop, and did we get you? There we go. Hey Jay, what's up, babe?
Yeah, you got me in, man. And I know we're up on the break and everything.
That's okay. We got about 4 minutes. Go ahead.
All right, dude. Here's one big. Now I hear about the alien intervention on behalf of humanity. The idea that they're working for us and helping us out. I hear about that a lot. But I think there's one key point that everybody tends to overlook when they're making that when they're looking at it from that point of view. Yeah, there are a lot of specific cases where aliens have helped people. But in all cases, Joe, they didn't help everybody. They didn't help anybody planet-wide. They helped a specific tribe, a specific race, a specific group of people. I mean, they couldn't really give a damn about everybody else. I mean, just take a look at the Hopi prophecies. They told the ant people, told the Hopi to go underground and take cover, and they were taken care of by the ant people race. But, to hell with everybody else. I mean, they took care of the Hopi, but apparently let everybody else die. I mean, you see a lot of examples like that a lot.
Well, you do see a lot of examples like that. You see a lot of this spread out all over. And I try to get people, that's why I said, when we started the show, look, we're talking good right now because there are things where it does seem like they've done this, but they had alternative reasons. They wanted us to sci-fi for every reason they wanted us. And me and you both know from being researchers that, frankly, they do some pretty nasty stuff. And they do it on a fairly regular basis.
You see basically the same thing going on with the abduction phenomenon today. I mean, this is the way I've looked at it. I mean, there are a lot of people with point of views that differ, but the way I look at it is ET seems to be interested specifically only in certain people. They're not getting the entire population. They pick who they pick, and really, they don't give a damn what the rest of humanity thinks about it. I mean, that just seems to be how they operate. They're not doing things on everybody in humanity's behalf. They're doing things to certain people.
Well, they are doing things to certain people.
And they're not even telling those people what the hell is going on. So, I mean, a lot of it is open for interpretation. I have to grant that.
Well, a lot of it is open for interpretation, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, they have a lot of stuff they're keeping up to, and they have a lot of agendas and multiple agendas that seem to be laid over. But what bothers me is okay, originally when you go to Sumerians, it seemed like we were just a dumb blah race. So it seemed like the human aliens were not even interested in making us any more intelligent than what we were because we made good slaves or good whatevers at the time. All great. Whoever reptilians may intervene, but still, none of them, whether you want to talk about the reptilians, the greys, the humans, really have came to the overall aid of man, meaning that, look, tomorrow morning, if the greys showed up in mass, this planet would go instantly from being Russian, German, American, Italian to Earthlings. There'd be no more, I'm from Russia, I'm from Earth, buddy. That would be instant uniting the planet. It wouldn't solve all our problems, mind you, but it would really put us moving in the right direction. You'd see a unilateral currency. You'd see a different type of thing because then it would be a much bigger threat than Russia or China. China would be going, screw America. We got greys running loose. Reptilians, 8 foot tall, running down the streets of Beijing. Oh, no, that changes the way you perceive the world.
Well, yeah,
but they won't do it.
Well, dude, like you said, there are a lot of creation mythologies and stories that basically have the same components, and I'm just gonna take a look at Adam and Eve in the Bible, just because it's simply the one most people are familiar with. And well, I said earlier that extraterrestrials never seem to make an intervention on behalf of the entire race. They only seem to do it on for certain groups that they've decided to pick and hit to hell with everybody else. I have to back up and say I was wrong about that because you made me think about something, man. The last time that an extraterrestrial race made an intervention that benefited the whole of mankind was basically when the snake gave us the apple.
Yep. And of course, we think it's a sin.
Well, of course, history's written by the victors, so you just have to look at it from that perspective when you're taking a look at the Bible in the first place. But I think that, like you said, it almost looks like something created us to be young, dumb, stupid, naive, completely and totally complacent, and completely and totally dependent on our creators. And then what did the evil reptilian do? Came down and gave us the ability, to think for ourselves, knowledge, to be able to figure out the universe on our own, and this is the bad guy?
Yeah, no. And I would really like to know what the reptilians' alternative was, other than, maybe they wanted to get back at the humans or this, that, or the other thing. It just seems to be,
well, yeah, I mean,
why add competition to the planet, Or maybe they thought we would be allies long run. I guess maybe they really thought 1,000 years, 10,000 years down the line, when we find out what really went down, we may ally ourselves with them and blow off the humans. Because, for us, first we're going to want to migrate towards humans because they look
Actually, Joe, there's already a story where that basically happened. I mean, take a look at Prometheus and the Titans. Prometheus gave us fire. He did the same thing that that the snake did in the Garden of Eden. Prometheus gave us knowledge, and then the gods decided to destroy the Titans over that. I mean, basically the scenario that you're putting out here, there's already an allegorical tale that basically says it.
There is. Well, there's a couple of good ones out there, but it's like when we talk about the Adam and Eve story. If you go back through history, you're going to find this story almost in every society where some serpent or some reptilian came in and either gave us life or gave us knowledge. You got to wonder from their point of view they did it. I mean, I'm hoping it's because they want to be allies. There's always an argument that it's their planet, but then why create competition? They'd have left dumb. No one would have thought about nothing about them wiping out a dumb race.
I think it's actually a little bit more literal than, the snake as a metaphor. If, like I said, if you take a look at some of the Greek mythology, that's a little bit more literal. It's blatant, and it's like one race of gods versus another race of gods.
Well, it is kind of that, and I guess that's what it's coming down to when they're talking about the different types of aliens and stuff like that. And in all fairness, and I don't want to hate on the people who live back in the ancient world, because in all fairness to them, the only way they could understand alien technology and alien intervention was as gods or demons or deities. I don't know how else you could do it, and it got me to thinking about David and Goliath, because Goliath was probably a damn human-type alien. Poor bastard got killed with a rock. Now, that's just got to be sad for an alien. Right home to Mom. Dad got killed by a rock by a human the other day, Mom. I don't know what to tell you here. Oh, man. What was he, 8 foot tall probably back then? Everybody was only 5 foot tall in a day anyway, so you didn't have to be that tall. 7 foot, you'd look like a
Joe, but you have to look at it back then, dude. I'm 5'8", and I'm considered basically short in today's world. But if you took me back 3,000 years, I'd be tall. Hell, dude, you'd be considered a damn giant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of a strange thing. It is really, really kind of a strange way to think. But anyway, we're going to go run the break, guys and girls. We'll be back in a little while. Talk about some other stuff. Talk a little bit more about the ancient world. Maybe some weird shit we've seen out in the woods or something. Who knows? Let me put y'all into some music, and I'll see y'all in about 8 minutes if Pal Talk will behave.
Lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft,
the unseen,
heat,
Connections Radio, Thursday night.
In general, out in the middle of nowhere.
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really kicked.
Your claw, you son of a bitch. Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to 6-gun Joe.
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the first hour of the show. We talked quite a few topics there. That and, of course, the wackadoodle world we all live in. Man, some people are just such a wackos, man, I swear. Aliens to the people who are just complete and utter idiot wackos. I mean, they just are. You got to kind of wonder. Some people's state of mind. You just got to kind of wonder sometimes. It's one of those things when you meet someone and they're one way and then later on they turn out to be something entirely different. It's just such a disappointment. It just really is. But what can you do? The world is what the world is, and it's always full of surprises. Oh, wait, hold on. I see somebody else calling in here. Hold on. Let me snatch y'all in the queue here.
Who this be?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, how you guys doing?
What's up, man?
What's up, favorite caller?
You got probed?
Yeah. Who's your favorite caller?
Somebody called in the other day, said Callie got probed. Is that true?
I don't know.
I thought I heard that on Chip's show, man.
You're the only show I
somebody else. Never mind, that was something else. Never mind.
Yeah, I know. You're the only show I listen to. All the other ones I just very rarely listen to.
Oh, the hate, man. The hate. Y'all getting hated on out there in radio land.
Well, I don't even listen to your politics show because I would probably call in and scream at you people. I listened once.
Yeah, you don't even listen to my show, Dick.
Nope, I don't.
Politics.
I just can't do it now. I listen to your show. Usually I'm at work when you're on, so.
Well, one thing good about the political show is it's getting syndicated, so at least I'll get a paycheck from it. Hello, Callie.
Hey, and by the way, I did not get probed.
Hey, let's be honest. If anyone's getting probed, it's Joe and Jason. Those are the ones that get probed.
No, me and Joe run Mill Labs. I mean, Joe's like the big, like, 5-star general. He's like the George Patton. I'm like the little 4-star general.
We're going to reassign who gets
run Mill Labs. Hey. Y'all two could goof off
aliens care about any kind of status you have.
Aliens gave it to us. What are you talking about? That's why you keep her, man. That they allow you to talk. So when you go see the Gray, you say, "Look, Johnny Gray."
But anyway, before the break, Joe, you said something interesting. You and Jason were talking about something interesting, and I kind of want to throw something at you. I have a slight hypothesis that I think that actually it wasn't the human aliens that created us. I think the Titans did. And the reason why that is, if you look at what are known as the bull people in ancient Egypt, these guys were like 18 feet tall. And they left when a humanoid race came in. And there are a few records about it. And I think the reptilians are allies to them.
It's possible. But
that's actually a better theory than any of the shit I've heard David Wilcock say on Ancient Aliens.
Well,
even though I don't see how biomechanics would allow an 18-foot tall giant without any serious medical problems, because like if you look at like people like gigantism, like they have a lot of.
Yeah, but that would all depend on where they were born. If they were born on a planet somewhere with a 4G environment that was say 20, 25 times the size of Earth with a light core, you could get away with it, but. But still, like high gravity actually makes life more squat, and they probably like if anything, they have to have several legs in order to support their own weight, or even hydrogen bladders or something.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but not like 5 or 6. You're talking about like 40 or 50.
The reason why they were called the bull people was because they had these massive like suits supposedly that basically looked something like a bull, I guess. That's what they looked like.
That might have been the human aliens, because they couldn't, when they first came here, they couldn't breathe the atmosphere.
But they act so different than what
they were already 8 or 9 foot tall, so inside of a suit, they were probably 40 foot tall.
They like literally, like the text say, they brought writing, they brought fire, with what Jason was talking about, Greek and Prometheus. They gave us fire, they gave us writing, they gave us knowledge, they gave us the form of art, creativity, and stuff like that. That doesn't sound like they wanted us to be a slave race at that point then.
Well, no, that's not true. All of that so that you could be a slave race. Think about what you just said. You can't be an efficient slave without efficient equipment, my friend. That's the whole point. They wanted us intelligent, but not to the point we could challenge them. That's the whole point.
But they also gave the Egyptians supposedly math and mathematics.
Math came later in the Egyptians, 3,000 or 4,000 years later.
Well, the pyramids right now.
That's something that the Egyptians probably gave themselves. Whenever that DNA was encoded back into the Sumerians, that was probably when they learned math. But before
they did deep scans of Egypt. There's over 5,000 pyramids, and some of them now are dated to the 0 King. They like admitted that. So there are pyramids that are older than what civilization is supposed to be.
Like, are those peer-reviewed articles or anything? Because, like, usually, like, I don't consider an article or anything like statement like that very credible unless it's peer-reviewed by other experts.
And it's tough
because when you peer-review something, you can like check for the facts themselves and look at the sources.
The other thing about that is peer review is the surveys done on Egypt. 5,000 pyramids or so, and it was also on History Channel as well as Discovery and National Geographic.
Well, I know there's been peer-reviewed work done on the Sphinx, and there is a consensus that the Sphinx probably is 10 or 12,000 years ago because that's when it was raining in the River Nile Valley. But even that's still questionable. Even though it has been peer-reviewed, there's still a big fight in Egyptology about how old the Sphinx actually is. The funny part about the Sphinx is it does line up with Leo at 12,005 years. It may have been built then, but since none of us are here, we're never going to know, and there's no way of carbon dating it to be sure. There's just no way of dating it to know, unless we find some writing somewhere that says this. And since we don't know what the original face was, we just have a lot of ideas. We think it was a lion, but we don't even know in the beginning if it wasn't something else. I mean, we're talking about a monument that's 10, 12,000 years old. God knows how many heads it's had on it.
I predict 12, just random number. I like the number 12, and I like that. And
the seat, the way it's sitting, that could be a dog, a hyena, a lion, a tiger, any damn thing, man. I mean, that's the stance that most big animals take when they sit out. So,
okay, what is the carbon? What is the dating on the pyramids right now? Do we know?
6,500 years for the oldest one.
6,500 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and
wait a minute. And that's an argument. Technically, if you want to go by where there's a total consensus, the oldest pyramid is, I believe it's 5,800, either 48. Ow. Reset Jason there. But it's somewhere right around.
Jason, are you
back? He'll be back.
Okay.
He'll be back. He got zapped, but he'll be back in a minute. But that's the whole thing. When you get the Sumerians are pretty clear about what went on. So was the Dogon. So was the Egyptians. What's nice about the three of them is their stories overlap. So it gives you some.
Actually, I've been reading through the. I've been reading through the Sumerian text, and they don't and actually I find that like they don't really match up with the way you describe them. For example, I've been like reading through them several times. I haven't found anything about like anything reptile-like and raping women and like having children.
Look, I'll even save you the grief. Just type in reptilian Sumerian text. It comes right up on the internet. You don't even have to. You don't. It comes from legitimate sites. You don't even have to. It's not even a big deal.
And why don't you
if you don't want to take it there, you can go to Stitchin's site, which I hate to use him, but you go to Stitchin's site, and his links directly back to the library. So actually, to the British Library, if I remember right. It's not a big issue here. You just apparently ain't a good researcher, but it's not real hard to find it. And it's not real hard.
Why don't you post the links, because I still find like.
About that. Now I got a rule about posting links. I always have. I don't post one link, because if I post one, I got to post them all. And frankly, that's all I'd be doing. You know, and I'm real honest about that, because that's all I would be doing is posting links. So I tell people all the time, if you want to get it posted, I even tell people you can post it on my sites, you can post it on my Facebook pages. I don't mind. But once we discuss a link, and because every link we've discussed has been posted somewhere on one of the sites at one time or another. And to be honest with you, on the old iCar site, which is still up, www.icar1.homestead.com, it might still be there. I just haven't been on the site in 2 years, so I don't really know. But it might actually still be on the site.
Last time I was on there was like errors to links, and they weren't working, and that was about 8 years.
Well, which one?
About a year ago. So
there's
I just don't use it anymore.
But there's 3 iCar sites. Which one were you talking about? There's www.icar1.com. Okay.
Yeah, that was the one I was on, and all the links weren't working.
Yeah, that site is actually getting ready to come down. The old site's staying up for a while until the new site's finished. Yeah, I always call him that. He'll get over it. I've interviewed him before. He'll survive. I mean, not him.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I interviewed Ike before. Wrong one. Got him cross there for a minute.
Hey, I was in the middle of the new iCar website when it decided to crash 6 months ago. That was a fun day.
But yeah, it's actually supposed to be down. I'm not even know why it's showing itself. I'll have to go see why it's showing up. Because right now it's supposed to be sending it over to the iCar1.homestead site. So I'll have to go find out why it's doing that. But yeah, we're getting rid of that one altogether and just keeping the old one until the new one's finished. The new one's finished because that site, the one you're talking about, was built in HTML and it's just too hard to upkeep because we have too much shit coming and going, so it's just too hard to upkeep. So it's coming down and just a normal.
Why did you build it in HTML?
I didn't. Somebody else did. It was somebody who did it for us. And it's a great site. He did a great job on it, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, so what did you say to look up again, for the
old site?
No, for the text. For the text. So when I want to find text, I mentioned some kind of reptile like being in the Sumerian text. He said Sumerian
all I usually type in is Sumerians and reptilians is usually what I type in. And
I just did that right now, and I'm not really finding looking fake sites that I would consider credible. They all seem like rather biased.
You won't know that until you go through and read them, because some brilliant people are sloppy website builders. You have to keep that in mind, my friend. That's something I had to learn when I first started surfing the internet. Some cheesy sites that sometimes got really good information on because the guy who is writing it is excellent. He just lousy website builder. I found that out a long time ago. There's 2 Princeton professors that post. Matter of fact, they actually even talk about reptilians in one of their posts because they made a comment on a blood type study. They have the nastiest, funkiest blog I've ever seen. Men are both brilliant. The blog is really gnarly, ugly. They're brilliant.
So you're professors of one's a professor of ecology and the other one's a professor of history at Princeton University. Is it those 2 that you're talking about? The ones that have the whole entire script line at the beginning of their website that you're just like, what?
It might be. I'd have to actually have to go see it to be sure, but it might be.
They need to hire you, Joe, to like fix their website.
Well, it's funny you said that because I was talking to one of the doctors that because I actually build websites for a few people, and I was talking to a doctor friend the other day, and he's like, "Man, I really need a site." And he was on. I had done a site for one of our customers, one of my customers from our construction company. He's like, "You build websites?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me make you one." And I built it for him, and I even showed him how he could upkeep it and keep the damn site and do all the stuff on itself and not cost because he was paying like $400 a month for a site. And I'm like, dude, let me show you how to do this, man. When I showed him this and I told him, I said, these site builders we use it's like site building for idiots. Literally it is. It's like site building for idiots. If you can't work this, you're literally an idiot. And it works great. They all catch on to it quick and it saves them tons of money. And it, of course, makes big brownie points for me because I build their initial site and all they have to do is upkeep it and go from there. And I mean,
until the moment that the computer decides, I'm going to be a stupid idiot because it's called the Murphy effect because my last name's Murphy, and anything that will go wrong with technology goes wrong while I'm in the room.
It's carbonite.
It is. I'm technology's carbonite. Seriously, like if I stay on my laptop longer than like 5 hours, it's brand new and it'll start crashing. Stupid freaking technology.
I don't do that. I got my new Azus pad. It's badass, by the way. I got a new Azus telephone, which is a pad and a telephone all built into one. So when you want to use it as phone, you slide the phone out the back. When you want to use it, so when you don't want to look at that stupid little screen that your phone has on it, you slide it into the back of the 9-inch pad and you go to town.
Hey, Joe. So you said something about the reptilians and why they might have done, why they might have gotten involved. You just say because they might want us to be allies later on. Could you think of any other reasons other than just that?
Yeah, I can think of one. I can think of one. Maybe they just don't like the Greys or the humanoids or whoever they were competing against and did it just to fuck with them.
I think that's what they did too. I think I think they just don't like the human type ants. I really think what happened was is the reptilians are probably native to Earth. They probably were born here. This is probably their home.
Yeah, though they never really. So from what you say, they never actually say it from themselves.
No, they don't actually. As far as I know, they don't really go bragging about it. There has been some speculation, but nothing more than that. But what's funny about it,
I heard a few contactees said that one that they've asked. I've read articles where a contactee said that he asked and they kind of went, we don't want to talk about it.
Well, because they don't want to start any crap. They don't. At this point, claiming this is their homeworld now would cause problems. Saying it came from here is one thing.
What can we really do about it? What can they really do about it?
We can't do anything about it. If they wanted to come in and take over, they could, but is the other races going to allow them to just come in and wipe us out? And I don't even think they want to. To be honest with you, I don't. Reptilians don't present themselves. Oh man, you got to be kidding me! As a race that wants to harm us. I think they really want to work with us. I just don't think, probably because they look so much different than us, it's just a hard thing to settle down. And that's why a lot of times when you hear contactees talk about initially, they have all these great experiences with the reptilians. Initially what you hear them is this beautiful woman or this beautiful man that later on, years down the line, turns out to be a reptilian. You hear a lot